Hi, I'm Kevin Pawlowski from Paradise Found Studio, and today we're going to be talking to Bernadette Carstensen-Cody. And she does some beautiful work, iconography. She works in gouache. We're going to be getting into all of that, the symbology, so I'm really excited about this. So Bernadette, thanks for joining me today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, first thing I want to talk to you about is, what's your background? I see on your website you've got some of your student work, so obviously you have a formal art education. Where did you study? What were you going for when you went to study art?
Went to art school in Columbus, Ohio, and I did a 4-year program, and I just got a BFA in illustration. And back then, I was really focused on being a book illustrator, and I wanted to be like Arthur Rackham and do those European, like turn of the century pen and ink with watercolor type of illustrations. I was really into like fantasy literature and sci-fi literature, and transitioned into religious art in about 2013.
Yeah, that explains. I mean, I noticed you had done some Lovecraft, some Poe, some darker stuff, and then see your work evolve into the iconography, the saints, the religious subjects. Was there any epiphany that drove that, or is that just a natural thing you progressed to?
Yeah, I would say it was definitely more of an epiphany. 2013, there was this contest that I found online called the Apocalypse Prize, and I got really interested in it because Revelation is sort of, it's got like fantasy imagery in it, and so it really like hooked me. The rules of the contest were you have to create a triptych based on 3 chapters in Revelation, and you have to follow the rules of medieval manuscript illumination. I spent a lot of time getting back into reading the Bible and just like researching. I don't know, it just changed my heart. I had like a little reconversion. Ever since then, that's all I've done.
Well, that's interesting. So that explains because yeah, that your Revelations piece. I mean, it's really ambitious, of course, and the amount of research went in there. Now, how long did this piece take?
Probably about 5 months, I'd say, because I spend a lot of time just reading and trying to come up with the ideas. And then after I come up with a general idea, then like you start the sketching, and after I get a nice drawing, then I have to go and take photographs of my models. I modeled for Mary, and then it had a friend model for St. John. So that's a lot of work because you have to make the costume and set it up, and so after I do all that, then I get to the drawing and do that. Actually goes pretty quick. I do a nice draft, couple of drafts, and then the painting. It took me maybe like a month.
So I was curious. I've studied a little on Revelations myself, and things like the diadems on the dragons. Like tiara. You opted not to go literal there, and in some places, of course, you did go more literal with Mary's crown, for example. What went into your decision on when you went literal, when you went more figurative? It's just kind of interesting because it's a tough subject.
It is interesting because in the rules, in the medieval painting, like the rules you're supposed to follow, there's certain figures that can only be pictured a certain way. So like they would always have angels barefoot, and like they always had to be bigger than people on earth, or a saint could be bigger than a regular person, and like every element in the illustration would have to like be part of this order, like these set of rules. And so I designed the painting with that kind of mindset, where it's like every element has to fit into the whole idea. And so I have, Mary has the crown, and to me, I just saw that like having the crown be representing divinity, like to also have a crown on the dragon, just in my illustration would be confusing. So I decided to just have the dragon look like an animal.
Yeah, it'd be kind of weird and distracting, I think. Now, it looks like you predominantly work in gouache, and this isn't a medium I'm that familiar with. It's not quite watercolor, not quite acrylic, and so I'm just kind of curious on how you chose that medium, how you fell into that.
It's kind of funny when I was in high school. I remember we had gouache, and my teacher said, "Well, gouache is the hardest paint to use," and my mom and dad are also artists, and they said the same thing. Oh, gouache is the hardest paint to use. So I just had this like, well, I'm going to use the hardest paint and get really good at it. It's become a lot easier for me to use than watercolor. I feel like I have more flexibility. I don't have to plan so carefully.
Now, it looks from the chronology of your website that St. Patrick is one of your early icons. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of where you're establishing your style, right? And it's not exact throughout, but it carries through. What went into this early work here?
I love that painting because it's a picture of him holding St. Patrick's in Columbus, Ohio. That's where I grew up. And I did that for the Knights of Columbus. So yeah, I was still doing like pen and ink with watercolor back then.
Okay, then moving on to your Sacred Heart painting. It looks like you got sort of a European look, like a Warner or Salmon European traditional look, more from the 20th century. But you're combining it with some, older influences. What went into some of that decision?
That one, I had more direction from the diocese. They had a picture they wanted me to copy, and they said they wanted an icon. So I believe in icons you have to have the cross and the halo for Christ. And then the hand gesture, I took that straight from the painting they had. The painting was, they wanted me to copy it exactly, and I'm glad I didn't. It was not very good. And so I just kind of freestyled it a little bit.
You said you're glad you copied it exactly. You're glad you didn't.
I'm glad I didn't. It was,
Oh.
some like sappy thing from the 70s. I didn't like it at all. So they were flexible enough to let me just do a mix between like an icon and something more realistic.
So now let's talk about Mary Garden Showers painting. What I thought was cool is this was definitely a break from the more traditional iconography. Obviously the ethnicity of Mary and Jesus looks very much like you would expect, 2,000 years ago in the Middle East. Is that a conscious approach that you're going with this?
Yeah, because I wanted to show like something natural that might have happened, in real life, and so I just thought I should show her as she might have really looked.
Now moving on to, you got Saint Therese, Saint Catherine, and Saint Teresa. Now the detail is amazing in these. Now, how long did these take you?
Those I took probably about 3 months because I had a deadline I was trying to meet. I was doing it for a conference. There's a women's conference in Ohio that I used to go to, and I just would set up a little booth and sell prints, and I thought, I bet the women would really like seeing the female doctors of the church.
So that brings me to a painting you did with a lot of different saints in it. Can you tell me a little bit more about this piece?
See, 2016 was the 800th anniversary of the Dominican Order parish. It was Dominican parish, and so there was like a big celebration for the Jubilee, and I did that painting, and it actually took me quite a while to pick out the saints because there's so many, and I was trying really hard to narrow it down, but eventually picked some of the ones that are really well known, and then a couple others that are more obscure. And especially Blessed Margaret of Costello is in there. We have a shrine in the back of St. Patrick's.
Now, anybody who's done portraiture knows how difficult that can be. And then to do so many in one piece, I mean, what were the challenges? I mean, to me, I look at this and the danger of a piece like this, and you didn't run into this, is the Sergeant Pepper's look. Is what I would say is, where it looks like a bunch of heads pasted on, shadows are all wrong. I mean, you had to done a lot of work to keep all that consistent. Can you tell me a little bit about your process there?
First, I went through and I just did image search for the thing to see if they were photographs online. Some of them did have photographs, and some, like Teresa of Avila, has like a portrait they say was painted from life. So I take those things, and then I get people, my models, to pose, and I just kind of match, create my own face, try to remain accurate to their likeness, but use the modeling and the lighting from the models.
Because this last one was your portrait of Mary at the foot of the cross, and you've done this a few of this that are at different angles. One was Mary Magdalene. Now, is this Mary Mag, or is this the Mother of Christ?
Mary, the Mother of Christ.
I mean, looking at the look on her face and the detail. I mean, the detail on the feet. You really capture the skin. The translucence of the skin, it looks not just real in terms of shadows, but almost that translucence, which I'm sure your medium helps. But it looks deeply personal to me.
It was, this Mother of Sorrows has just always been their version of Our Lady that I like the most, that I feel like is the most comfort to me. And, yeah, an old family friend modeled for that.
And then you had to have a model for the feet, right?
My dad modeled for the feet.
Your dad, okay. Bernadette, thanks for taking time out and talking about your work. Please reach out to us if you have anything new to share. If you got some excellent new artwork that you want to share, please feel free to reach out. So if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, go down below and you can see Bernadette's website. You can go to Paradise Found Studio and see all the beautiful artwork we have there. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like. And even better, subscribe. We're going to be doing this every few weeks, so you get to see all the great stuff we're doing. Thanks.